In this video, I'm going to show you how I created a psychedelic indie song right here at home. I'll be taking you with me step by step as I go from an idea to a recorded demo to a complete production, so by the end you should know how to do the exact same thing with your own ideas. But there's going to be a little bit of a twist. I'm only going to be using virtual instruments and some basic MIDI piano playing to make this entire song. So if you're like me and you don't regularly practice or play certain instruments, you will still be able to follow along. And before we get started, I do want to mention, if you're an artist working on something and you do need a producer, I go through this exact process with artists all the time, so there's a link in the description where you could tell me about your project if you're interested in working together. Okay, now let's get started. When I start making a song, I will usually dedicate a week or two to just coming up with short, small musical ideas every single day. I'll spend no more than 10 or 20 minutes per idea, put it in a folder, and then pick a new one. At a minimum, each idea is usually a 4-bar chord loop with a mumbled melody over top, but the inspiration can come from anywhere, whether listening to a new song or you hear an interesting preset or some sort of loop that really gets you excited about this idea and what it could be. And at the end of this process, I'll go through that folder and pick my favorite idea. To me, this is a really important step, especially when working with someone else, because it's really hard to say that you don't like a musical idea that someone came up with, but it's a lot easier to have a shared group of ideas and you just pick the one that everyone's excited about. And so for me personally, while going through my list of ideas, this is the one that I wanted to work on. 1, 2, da 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 da. As you can hear, it's just a few piano chords and some mumbling melodies, but at the time I remember listening to a lot of Tame Impala, so I was really able to imagine and get really excited about what I think this idea could become as a song. So now that I picked this idea, it was time to get it recorded into my DAW, which is Logic. So I made my vocal track, I made my MIDI piano track, and I recorded them both in. From here, I immediately jumped into sketching out the full composition of the song. And the reason I do this as quick as I can is because I've seen myself and a lot of other people get stuck at this point. Because what can happen is I still have this full, finished, complete, amazing Tame Impala song inside my head, and I'm immediately comparing it to this idea that I just came up with, and it sucks. So instead, I just try to stay in the mindset of, I'm just sketching something out, nothing needs to sound great right now, I'm just kind of exploring this musical idea and sketching out a plan for what it can be. And at the end of the day, I just want something that I can come back to and work on. That's the bar. Okay, so back to the structure, I looked at a couple Tame Impala songs, noticed some similar composition, and so I went with something really, really simple, just chorus, verse, and a double chorus at the end. This part I had already felt like a chorus, so I spent some time on the verses, coming up with some new chord progressions, so this simple arrangement can still sound interesting as it goes from chorus to verse, chorus to verse. So once I got that locked in, I now have a composition and a chorus melody to work with tomorrow. And I knew the first thing I wanted to do was find a cool synth sound for these piano chords and start coming up with some verse melodies. At this point, in my head, I knew I wanted this retro saw pad that was kind of warbling and floating in the background. So I pulled up Serum and started sound designing and playing with presets and trying to figure out what really fits that sound that I was looking for. And when you're working with someone else, at this point, you'll start digging into reference songs and reference instruments to really understand what kind of sound that they're hearing and what they're going for. With this sound in place, I jumped back over to the mic and started using the heavy auto-tune just to search and find some interesting melodies that I liked in the verse. I am not a very great singer, I'm not very pitch accurate, so the intention here isn't to leave the auto-tune on, but it's just to be able to comfortably explore different melodies without having to search for the key or try and find the right notes and be struggling. And after a bunch of time, I eventually landed on these two verse melodies and thought, let's just end that here for today, and tomorrow we can start digging into a lot more of the production. Alright, so for this part, I really wanted to start with the drums. Since I'm programming everything and not actually playing the drums, I like to use this one technique that, one, helps you learn a lot from your favorite songs and understand what are the common drum patterns in this genre that you're working in. So what I'll do is I'll take those songs that I like, stem split them, and recreate just a few sections that I really like the drum rhythms in. Once I have all these, I'll export them into a folder and I'll pull from that folder when I'm working on a song, just like in this situation. I like this method because it gives you way more customization than just an audio loop, and it already has the humanized feel baked into those MIDI hits, which you can then start to implement into your song. Then I took what I got from here and I started to sketch it out over the course of the composition, varying it up during the verses, adding some slight more variations in each chorus so nothing was exactly the same, and getting a basic drum structure across the song. And immediately after that, I wanted to also lay down a bass line. And in my mind, I was thinking of a retro bass guitar that has kind of a melodic pattern that I heard in a lot of Tame Impala songs. So I used the stock studio bass in Logic and started playing and experimenting with the notes within those chords from the pad. My goal here was to not sit on any of the bass notes of the chords for too long, and also add in a few notes here and there that weren't in the chords to add a little harmonic tension. In addition to this, there's also a feature called articulations where you can click on certain notes and actually make them, dead notes or slides, or add in some more static here and there, which really adds to the humanized feel of a programmed bass guitar. And while I'm doing all this, I'm also overlaying all the MIDI together occasionally just to see rhythmically if they're in line or if they're at least close enough to maintain the sort of humanized rhythm that those drums introduced. I don't want them stacked exactly on top of each other, but I want them close so that they all kind of move together. And with those parts in place, I felt like the core elements of the production were there, so I wanted to jump back into the songwriting portion. At this point, I started writing lyrics to each of these melodies, and I would adjust the melody to fit certain lyric, or listen to the melody and see if I can hear a lyric naturally coming out of it. Once I was happy with the lyrics I had, I immediately just started recording 5 or 6 layers of the entire song so I can have a really thick chorusy main vocal that, one, helps hide any pitch, volume, or performance inconsistencies that are definitely going to come up in my performance, as well as adding kind of a chorusy, swirly sound that I think would sound really good for this type of song. And once I got this down, I used Melodyne to really focus and perfect the pitch correction for at least one of the main vocals, and then just did some basic stock Logic pitch correction for the others, so that when they're all brought together, they sound something like this.
Only she knows what it's like to take it all off and leave it behind.
Now, with all these main parts, it comes down to the ear candy, the sound design, and all the fun, cool things that you don't necessarily hear or ever pay attention to when you're listening to a song, but the second they're gone, you will feel the difference. This is the stage where if you have a strong musical idea, you can really take it from sounding like something that was recorded at home or in a garage or on your phone and bring it into a place that's really professional and interesting and great to listen to. The first thing I did here, which took me a really long time and a lot of pain to go through to understand, is I'm bouncing all of this MIDI into audio, because sometimes the MIDI note doesn't actually trigger the audio sample that it plays for a few milliseconds, and that can throw out a performance where you don't understand why it doesn't feel good, but something is wrong. And once you turn your MIDI into audio, you can start making these tiny little adjustments, moving things off the grid, moving things based on how you hear it, and really humanizing the performance. And from there, I just started adding effects. I started automating these effects. I started doing sound design and sculpting things so they sounded more vintage, or they were in a room, or they had delay, or they were crunched together. Everything to make this sound old and retro and compressed and on tape. A lot of these are just classic tricks that always kind of work, like reversing a cymbal or a reverb into a drop, and then other things is just tons of experimenting, just having fun with it, trying random presets, throwing things around, and seeing what they sound like. And on top of this, I also started looking at those layers, all of the same vocal performance, and actually pitching a few of those notes here or there, a third or fifth, above or below the main vocal, and creating these kind of really subtle harmonies in certain areas. A really cool thing is to just make it personalized at this point. So you can just go through your camera roll, find videos from memories or vacations you went on, or record some of your friends screaming some fun things and just throw it in the back, and it'll start to add this kind of like organic and fun feel of things and sounds that are in your everyday life. And by the end of all of this, the song was completed. I mixed it, I mastered it, and I released it. So you can click the link in the description and listen to the full thing yourself. And if you're working on music right now and thought, wow, I wish I had someone I can work on music like this with, that is exactly what I do. I work with singers and songwriters to take their demo ideas into fully finished production. So I left a link in the description where you can submit details about your project and we can talk about if it's a good fit to work together. But besides that, I hope you like the song and thank you for watching.